really excited to introduce our speaker, Jen Adamski, who's the founder of Clario, a strategic marketing consultancy that helps small business advocates and mission-driven organizations turn complexity into clarity. With more than 15 years of experience across healthcare, education, technology, and government, Jen combines creative insight with operational know-how to help organizations communicate with confidence and move their missions forward. She leads messaging strategy, brand positioning, and AI-focused workshops that make emerging tools accessible and actionable. Jen was recognized on a national stage at CMS Wire's DX Summit, where she earned the People's Choice Award for her presentation on digital experience innovation. A graduate of BizStarts and Emerge Wisconsin, Jen serves in a volunteer leadership role as vice chair of the Racine County Development Authority. A lifelong artist, her creative roots shape a design-minded approach to systems, storytelling, and strategy. And she lives by the Wisconsin motto, forward, and helps others do the same. Please welcome our speaker this morning, Jen Adamski.
Thank you so much, Jason. I love how energized you are so early in the morning. So you've started us off with a great level of energy. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And as Jason and Jean mentioned, today we're talking about how these tools can be used practically for your business. So we'll jump in today. I want to thank you, first of all, WEDC, for the opportunity to share today. And for everyone that's a part, thank you for joining. And just letting you know, the prompts and tools that I share today will be available at the end of the presentation, so that you can focus on just taking things in. And is everybody able to see my screen okay? Just making sure if the team can see. Perfect. Perfect. And we will have a few minutes at the end for questions. So feel free, as you're participating, drop questions in the Q&A module at any time. Jason will be checking in on them. And at the end, as time allows, we'll be able to get through to those questions. So as they introduced, I, like you, am aware of many hats, especially as small business owners. I'm a marketer, an artist, and a parent. And this image that you'll see here is a sketch that I put together to showcase, the game of life that we all experience, how those experiences intersect to make us who we are today, very uniquely us. I'm excited to be here sharing what I've learned on this journey. One of the things they didn't mention was, I started in entrepreneurship at about 14. I was selling Avon, and I went and got a suit from Goodwill and was selling Avon and became top 3 in sales in my district at 15. So I've been on this journey for a long time and have been through since a lot of other experiences in the marketing world and in the corporate world that I'm excited to share today. One of those pieces is using AI. A lot of the things that we do in business and that I do in my business, I could not be as successful as I have been without leveraging some of these sorts of tools. So today we'll talk about AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude and some others. And these tools need clear instructions. So I like to start off some of these sessions with the question, what is a prompt? And I love this cartoon because it says, I am the genie of the lamp. Be careful what you wish for, as I am known to take things very literally. And so the man says, okay, in that case, let me be perfectly clear. Dang. So he was quite literal and clear, he thought, but he was not prescriptive enough. And these are some of the things that we can run into with prompting. If we're not specific enough or giving enough context, we can wind up with results that are less than ideal. So a prompt basically is a way of giving AI instructions. It's kind of like a magic spell for your business tasks. You can think of it as telling an assistant exactly what you want. So today isn't about making more work for you. It's about working smarter so that you can focus on what you do best, which is amplifying your existing expertise. I'm sure a lot of you have probably used the tools like ChatGPT in the past week. And today what we'll do is explore how tools like this can help us professionally. ChatGPT, for example, is a large language model. It's an AI that understands and generates human language. It's trained on tons of text, like books and websites, conversations, and it predicts and creates responses. So what we'll work on today is helping you find your focus and using AI, an LLM like ChatGPT or Claude, to identify your ideal customer. We're going to map the journey to understand your buyer's stages and needs and be able to speak to those specific stages so that it's a more impactful experience for your customer. Finally, we want to help you plan with purpose. We want to build a content strategy that's tailored to your audience. And we'll also take some bonus time to refine your brand voice using AI. So when we use AI, we can look at it as a brainstorming partner. It's a tool to amplify our expertise and not replace it. I've heard a lot of people say that those that use AI may be replaced by those who aren't using it. But one piece to always remember is that we want to amplify our expertise and not lean so heavily on it that it's replacing that, or that we're relying on it wholeheartedly. We want to keep using our critical thinking. So it is our 24/7 sidekick, but we do know that AI can have some confidently wrong answers and responses. It is smart, but it is not magic. It can hallucinate. That means that it's inventing answers that are incorrect, essentially. So again, use these tools, but always fact check and double check your work. Tools that we'll be talking about today include ChatGPT and Claude. There are a lot of other free and paid options out there. Some that I have used include Notebook LM. There's also Gemini, Copilot, DeepSeek. Certainly feel free to take and explore these things as time allows. But today, like I said, we'll focus on ChatGPT and Claude. In terms of prompting techniques, and again, the prompt is asking the AI to give us an output that is beneficial to us. There are two key ideas we want to remember. Be specific about what you want. And secondly, give enough details to avoid confusion. You don't want to turn out like the person in our cartoon that thought he was being clear and literally turned clear. So let's try to think of some more strategic ways or thoughtful ways to write a prompt. Instead of writing something like, give me marketing ideas, we could try things like, give me 5 low-cost marketing ideas for my small bakery that specializes in gluten-free treats and wants to attract more customers within walking distance. Again, we're being specific, we're giving context, and we're being thoughtful about what we're asking the AI to create so that we get a better output. Let's say in another example, we're planning and brainstorming for a new day spa business. The first example I'll show you is using Claude. Claude is another tool that I tend to use sometimes. I like the tone. It's a little warmer, friendlier, sometimes a little more concise. So feel free to, as I mentioned, experiment between both of those tools. But let's say I'm working on this day spa. I'll work on a prompt that says, let's give me 5 low-cost marketing ideas for my new day spa in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin that specializes in quick relaxation treatments for busy professionals. Let's focus on attracting local customers who work nearby and are looking for stress relief during lunch breaks or after work. So here's that prompt. So I'm typing in that prompt, giving me those low-cost marketing ideas. And let's see what it comes up with. So it's saying things, it's pulling up like some ideas, 5 low-cost ideas, a lunch break loyalty program. You could work on local business partnerships, working on approaching nearby offices, a stress-o-meter campaign, that's a little unique. A quick relief menu board, giving people some quick choices about a tension tamer, 25-minute stress buster, an evening networking spa sampler, hosting an after-work networking event. And it says each of these strategies focuses on highlighting the quick, accessible nature of your services while building connections with your target market. So some great ideas here. So, and one other step that we can take when we're using tools like this is to give it a persona or a job title. So I'm going to show you a slight adjustment that I've made to see what kind of output we get that's different. I'm telling it now to act as a successful, innovative director of marketing and to respond accordingly. Let's see what's different about this response. So it's thinking and it's saying, okay, as a director who's launched businesses, let's share some targeted strategies. Strategic sampling, creating sample sessions and bringing them to office buildings. Looking at some subscription programs, that's definitely a bit more strategic in terms of revenue creation. Digital targeting, cross promotions again, workplace wellness workshops, positioning yourself as an expert by offering stress management workshops to local businesses. And it's again asking, Would you like me to elaborate on any of these strategies or discuss implementation approaches specifically? The thing you'll notice about this response that's a little different is that it was a bit more strategic. Some of the things like the stress-o-meter was a little tactical. And when you create that persona, when you're asking for these outputs, you tend to get a bit more thoughtful of a response. So play with those as you're using these tools. As I mentioned, we wanted to work to identify our audience and use that then to move forward with what I call the impact framework. This is a framework I've created to help frame my content strategy. It helps with planning and creation. So we can use ChatGPT to tailor content to reach customers where they are, so they're more likely to purchase. So the first step is to identify who it is you're trying to reach. We want to understand what content resonates with them on each stage of the customer journey. So we can align then our content calendar or our plans or our thought leadership with our ICP's needs. And sorry about the acronym, I'm a marketer. We love our acronyms. ICP is Ideal Customer Profile. And we'll jump into that with the first letter of impact, which is I, identifying your audience. What does that mean? ICP, Ideal Customer Profile. The example that you see on screen is from the K-12 furnishings industry, something I was familiar with in a past life. And this is a tool I've put together to help identify who it is we're talking to. How can we resonate with them if we can't even describe who they are? So let's say I'm not sure how to describe my ideal customer. We can walk through an example together. So as I mentioned in this example, I used educational furniture. I developed a spreadsheet. I'm a little bit of a data nerd, and I trained a custom GPT to help with this process. And this will be available after in the final screen. You can access all of these resources. So an ICP, Ideal Customer Profile, helps describe our audience and who we're trying to reach. It's creating a specific description of a customer. What are their pain points? What are their goals? And more. And as we're going through this process, you definitely want to review this and finesse it as needed. You can cross-check to make sure it accurately describes your best customers. The example we see here talks about pain points, responsibilities, who are the job titles that we're looking to reach. So in this instance, it's an assistant superintendent, facilities directors, purchasing managers, superintendents. What challenges do they have? They have a limited budget, need for cost-effective solutions. Their buying behavior is that they're researching online for the latest trends in furniture. They're attending conferences and expos. And preferred content, what kind of content are they looking for? Usually case studies showcasing successful installations or detailed product guides and catalogs. So let's jump in now to help define that using AI. Here's a prompt about a small event space, and it's saying, I own a locally owned event space that people rent for baby showers and milestone birthdays. And they care about a beautiful space, flexible pricing. Help me create an ideal customer profile. And I was even specific and I said to eventually put it into format so I can copy it into my worksheet. Now it's giving us some insights in terms of the responsibilities, pain points of our potential customers, that they have limited time, there's difficulty, there's worry about logistics. What kind of preferred content would they like to see? They want to see real event photos, they want to see planning checklists, tips. And now because I've trained this tool, it's asking me, would you like to copy this into your worksheet? Which again, all of you will have available after this. Yes, I would like to do that. And now then it will also walk us through messaging by buying stage, the M part of our next stage. So what about their buying journey now that we know about this ideal customer? First, it's going to output the ideal customer. And next, let's move on to messaging. Based on those buying journey stages, we want to create themes that address pain points, goals, and interests for your ideal customer. So based on the customer description, let's say we want to write some blogs that really hit home to answer questions that they have or to persuade them to buy. We can create messaging to meet potential buyers where they're at. And again, you definitely want to review this based on your expertise and adjust and fact check as needed. So these buying stages can include things ranging from awareness to consideration, all the way through to post-purchase and advocacy. And some of those things I think about awareness. I love Bomba's socks, and I love what their brand is about. I have an awareness about them, and they do a great job of making sure that all the points along that customer journey are solid, even post purchase. I've had socks replaced because they've worn out. I also advocate for them because I, appreciate what their brand is about and the quality that they stand behind. So we again can take a look at all these different stages and start to ask these questions and answer them, thinking from the perspective of our ideal customer. So in this instance, we're looking at our furniture example. How do the buyers describe their goals or challenges in the context of my business? They're looking for modern, flexible furniture. They have ambitious goals, but they feel frustrated that despite all their efforts, they aren't making the revenue and profit they'd like to be. They worried about the cost of hiring people. They have a lack of technical knowledge. So there's a lot of different points along this journey that you can speak to. Because one of the things I like to say is if you're talking to everyone, you're saying nothing to no one. You want to make sure you're resonating and thinking through these stages and not just putting content out willy-nilly, but being really thoughtful to message and again meet potential buyers where they're at, because they're more likely to purchase from you and make that purchase decision if you can talk to them thoughtfully. So let's jump in to an example again, picking back up from our event space example. I'm asking it to, yes, please go ahead. Let's put that ICP info into a worksheet, and then let's work on messaging by buying stage. And I gave it a really specific prompt. I said to put it, put columns the way I want them to. So it's following some of this and putting it into a very concise, readable, digestible format. So here's our quick ICP, ideal customer profile, for this event space example. And we'll move on now to messaging by buying stage. And how are they educating themselves? Maybe they're searching Pinterest, they're asking friends, they're Googling things, they're considering renting a room, maybe using a park shelter, hosting at a home, or booking a venue. In the consideration phase, what key features are they seeking? They want flexible packages, easy parking. Intent, how do they move from that? They want quick responses. What information or reassurances do they need? What influences loyalty? How likely are they to recommend the venue? Very likely if it was smooth and memorable. So now it's starting to think through these questions. So we've worked on, and the prompt I gave it again was, let's work on messaging by buying stage and include the stages of awareness, interest, consideration, intent, evaluation, purchase, post-purchase, and advocacy, and give me brief answers to those related questions. Don't get overly wordy. I have to remind AI that oftentimes to be succinct. And so now it gave me this really helpful output. So now it's asking, would you like to move on to step 3, a content plan that's lasting for 12 weeks based on this messaging? Great. Let's take a look at what that next step looks like. Planning your content calendar. So we want to create, as it mentioned, a week-by-week schedule that aligns with purchasing cycle, buying cycles, and addressing those relevant customer questions. This screenshot, just as an aside, shows Claude. As I showed earlier, it's a tool from Anthropic that I like for its tone and voice. This example put together a list of 52 blog titles that targeted ideal customers across buying stages. So you can see some of these examples that were, thought leadership type content, trends in school furniture, how to make your school more sustainable. And now let's apply that example again to our live example. So we are asking it to craft content, a mix of social posts, a small portion of thought leadership articles, targeting my ideal customers across multiple buying stages. I also asked it to consider the time of year of each post to inform the content. So let's see what it comes up with. So here's our sample content plan. It's laying it out in the way I've directed it to, where column 1 is the week, column 2 is the content title, we've got content description, and then what buying stage it's speaking to. And be sure the content answers those relevant questions your ICP has. And we're wanting to do things like this to position your brand as a thought leader in the space. So here's what it's coming up with. It's 3 questions to ask before you book a venue. I saw an example there about, I think there was a June 2nd date. that was asking about what tips are there for planning a summer event. So I love this. It's helpful. It's saying, would you like me to continue with weeks 13 to 52 for the full year? I can create a downloadable spreadsheet version if you'd like. So it's very helpful in moving through these stages to create content and even just strategy and plans that will align with your customers. So now we're at the next step where we can create an outline for our selected blog article. The prompt that I give my tools are to outline the content first. Let's keep the buy-in stage in mind when outlining. And the goal is to drive the reader to contact us to discuss their needs, provide value, and don't be overly salesy or use too much filler, which sometimes these tools can do. I always make sure to iterate that you definitely want to review this before moving ahead with full-on writing, because AI can be very inaccurate sometimes. It can, as I mentioned, hallucinate, invent things. So use this output as a guide and not a finished product. You want to modify and build in your expertise, your insights, and your voice, and then create that finished product. So here's some examples using the furniture example, and let's jump in to our prompt that we want to draft some content based on this example of an outline for that June 2nd topic. Let's talk about that summer party checklist. What to plan first. And I said, please create a blog outline that I can use with clear scannable sections and time-saving tips. I want it to feel like a quick start guide. And then after that outline, give me some caption ideas to repurpose the blog into Instagram or Facebook posts. So here's our outline. It's defining the audience. It's writing some punchy kind of intro statements, make the magic feel easy. Section 1, it's creating helpful, digestible sections, securing your space early. That's something we want to make sure customers know for a better experience. Having a reality check of guest list, giving time saver tips, creating experience through food and tips. And I love this closing. It's let the planning feel as good as the party. So imagine seeing this message versus, just our event space is great, book us today. This is much more thoughtful. It's speaking again to our ICP, helping them understand tips that are helpful and making sure that they think of your brand first when the need comes up. So now it's asking, would I like to draft out the full blog? And as I mentioned, you can use this as a framework, add your expertise accordingly. So I was a former teacher, and one thing I love to do is to have a little break. So it's activity time, and I'd love for you to take a look at some of these considerations about using AI, and I'd illustrate some of the challenges that we face by just showing you. So I'm going to put some pictures on screen, and I would just love for you internally to think through what's wrong with this picture. These images are AI generated, and I'm just going to give a second for you to take a look at some of these and see perhaps what's wrong with this picture. Let's look at some more examples. So that first example, I don't know if you could see, but she has some issues with her arms. That's an interesting challenge. And this other image here that I created has some other issues. Let's look at her eyes. She's a little dead inside perhaps. And there's some lettering challenges there. One more example. This is kind of funny. I taught AI my sketch style using DALL-E. I'm also an artist, as mentioned, and jokingly kind of put this together because AI had been notorious for not doing a great job of displaying hands. So there's this example. When we're creating images and then those sorts of things, there are important things to consider. Let's look at another example. I asked DALL-E to create business people in an office. And one of the things that stands out here is that there's definitely a lack of diversity. There's like a lot of sameness here, and body type and many other diversity issues. And there are some challenges when we're using tools like this. On the right, I taught DALL-E my sketch style, and I prompted it to create a digital version of me. And this top image was its first output. It created this hyper idealized version of me. It took hours, and I had to get really brutal with the prompts to get it to cooperate. So AI, again, these tools are also built on tools that are trained with some inherent bias. And those things are considerations to be aware of as you are creating images and content, because they can become problematic. One other example is I had asked to create a construction worker who was a woman, and it could only output images with women in full makeup. And I would say, correct this image. I don't want her to have makeup. And it would create an image and gaslight me and say, no, this is an image of a woman without makeup. And she clearly had makeup on. So there are some challenges there, again, just to be aware of when you're using these tools. Another fun tip is that you can in-paint to modify some of these issues. I won't have time to delve into that here. But bottom line is, don't just accept the first output. So as I mentioned, in terms of ethics and other considerations, we want to make sure to check facts and bias. AI hallucinates, so it can generate incorrect or misleading information. We want to always review and edit for accuracy and relevance. So I call it gaslighting. I've actually had arguments with ChatGPT about an imaginary source that it cited. It may look very official, but when you start to peek under the hood or below the surface, you start to see chinks in the armor and issues that that can become problematic. As I mentioned, AI can reflect biases from its training data, which leads to problematic or oppressive language in some cases. Secondly, we want to protect privacy. We want to make sure to use it in alignment with your company policies. You want to avoid sharing sensitive or proprietary information, any business details like financials, customer data, or any confidential details into those AI tools. You want to make sure to be aware that the data that you upload could be used to train the models, and that information could be shared or found or retrieved in some way. So be considerate of that. Consider the impact. AI does require massive computing power. Data centers use water and energy to operate, so be aware of its environmental footprint and use it responsibly. Another piece of this conversation that is important as we're using tools like this, because we all start to sound the same as we're using these tools, is how do we define our brand voice? And what is brand voice? It is values plus personality. So it is the consistent tone and style that reflects your business's values and personality. It helps you to build trust and recognition with your audience. It helps you create consistent messaging and stand out locally. So as I mentioned, I love activities. So here's another one. Who said what? The first example is, our burgers are fresh, our tweets are spicy, and frozen beef? Never heard of it. I labeled that as sassy, witty, and engaging. Think in your mind, what brand is that? Who said that? Our next example is, no excuses, no limits, just you pushing past what you thought was possible. Let's go. And that has a motivational, confident, and assertive tone. Think about who or what brand that is. All right, are you ready? Let's see. Our first one was Wendy's and Nike on the other side. So we want to create brands that are so impactful and recognizable that you can see them just even absent of the logo. Let's jump into some thoughts to ask yourself. Key questions that you can use to define your brand voice. The first one is, how would I describe my company in just 3 words? What do I want people to feel when they engage with my content? And finally, what makes my voice unique compared to other similar businesses? Answering these questions will help you stand out and resonate with your audience in ways that your competitors are not. So an activity that you can do after today's sessions, maybe after lunchtime, is to brainstorm some descriptive words. You can take some time to create a hands-on exercise and write down 3 words that describe your business's tone and personality. Things like friendly, professional, approachable. Here are some examples that we can look through that help us understand this exercise a little more. You can look at words like trustworthy or mysterious. Are you positive or pessimistic? Are you authentic or more luxurious? One of the examples I like to give is I've built up my personal brand is that I tend to be a little more authentic. If you saw me in person, I'd probably be wearing Chucks that are painted on and not high heels, because I am not the opulent type. I am an artist. I like to present myself as my authentic self. So those are just things that can carry through even to your personal brand if you're interested in dabbling in that. But from your company perspective, thinking about things like its tone and personality, things like, are you friendly? Are you inspiring? Authentic, again, inclusive, perhaps, educational. Things like style, are you more casual or more formal? Are you playful, humorous, more straightforward, more elegant? And what are your values for your company? Things like integrity. Are we impact driven? Do we focus on leadership, collaboration? Are we service oriented? Think about some of these questions and take a screenshot here, so that you can revisit this, because it's really important as we're creating things that we're putting out into the world about our brands, that we include that brand voice, because again, it can drive home who we are, what help us stand out, and really help you win the customers that resonate with your brand and what you're about. So here's an example again, because today is about technology. How do we apply that brand voice to things like AI and ChatGPT? So we can test how our chosen brand voice sounds in a social post. This was an example as an exercise. Shout out to BizStarts. We worked on some brand voice exercises with them, and the team actually came up with some really interesting examples because they wrote down individually their keywords, and the number of overlaps in those keywords was really exciting, because they really had a consistency, and I think they were already all bought into what their values were and how those keywords applied. So again, they had redundant cards because some of them used the same words for their brand voice without even realizing it. So after we did that, we put that brand voice together into a social post. So the prompt was to write a brief example post that reflects the tone and values identified. And as I mentioned, this example is for BizStarts. And we want to share an entrepreneur spotlight in their brand voice. Excuse me. So what did it come up with after we had given it some of these exercises, some of this brand voice? Here's our sample social post. It says, Entrepreneurial Spotlight, Emerald Mills. At BizStarts, we're proud to highlight incredible entrepreneurs making a difference in our community, like Emerald Mills. Emerald is on a mission to empower entrepreneurs of color in the food space, helping them turn their passion into thriving businesses. Through her work, she's building bridges, breaking down barriers, and creating opportunities for those who often face the toughest challenges. Her passion is contagious, and her impact is felt by every entrepreneur she mentors. Emerald, we see the love and dedication you pour into your work, and we're grateful for the change you're inspiring in Milwaukee. Let's continue to support each other, lift each other up, and create spaces where every voice is heard and every dream is possible. Now imagine reading that and how inspired you are versus seeing, here's Emerald Mills. She's doing great things in Milwaukee. It can be impactful, but it can be that much more memorable and connecting when you start to layer in your brand voice. So one thing to consider is that once your brand voice is established, you can get a little more creative with content. One example is available in my blog. I actually was able to use Notebook LM to create an audio overview. It took a lot of source material and prompting and redoing, but what it created was a podcast about my journey as an entrepreneur. So you can actually listen to the story through the lens of two podcasters talking about this journey in my story. So something you can test and give yourself time to learn and to improve the output. But you can visit my website, which the link will be at the end of this presentation, clariocreative.com, Klario creative.com, and check that out, because you can start to then have fun, test out these tools, and find unique ways even that maybe others haven't thought of to create this content and to really start to leverage these tools in a thoughtful way. So to wrap up, I wanted to share some tools that I use. Things like Calendly have been a lifesaver. It saves literally 10 emails back and forth trying to pick a date to schedule. What it does is that it connects to your calendar and you can send out a link and people can click that link and then book time with you, and it sends out the invitation to both of you. It's magic, I would say. Definitely check that out. Other business use cases include things like creating product descriptions. If you're a product-based business, you can start to apply your brand voice, apply some of these things that we learned, and use it to craft consistent product descriptions. FAQ answers are another great place to leverage tools like this. Start to use customer, questions that you're getting and create answers then based on that. You can start to really get some meaningful content. Ironically, one of the blogs I wrote for the furniture and design build company I worked with, of all things, was a blog about chair glides. And chair glides are the little pieces that go on the bottom of a chair to protect the legs from scratching the floor. It came because a lot of people were asking a question about how do I get replacement chair glides, or how do I stop my chair from being so loud? Who knew that something that niche would be that well performing for many years? But it was. So think of answers, those FAQs that you're getting, those are gold that you can mine for content like this. You can also use it to refine your emails. I have a lot of friends and colleagues that sometimes will say, how do I say this more tactfully? I'm feeling challenged by this, or how am I thoughtful about this response? Like, I don't know how to respond to Bob. What do I say? You can use tools like this to refine your email responses and also be a little more succinct sometimes. You can use it to tailor proposals, and think through even like grant applications and review to make sure that you're answering all of the questions that are being asked in that grant proposal, for example. One that is also available is Otter AI. I have an asterisk here because you want to be careful with privacy on this one, but internally it can be really helpful to capture internal action items, the salient points of a conversation, and things that instead of you frantically typing, you can be fully engaged in the conversation. On the personal side, there are tools that we can use for ourselves. One that I have loved testing out is Motion AI. It is a calendar that populates, again, connects and syncs to your calendar, and then populates tasks that you need to complete throughout the week and the month, and it automatically will reschedule them. If you missed a deadline or you had a meeting pop up, it moves it, and it is like a magic assistant. It is a paid tool, but something worth checking out. On the personal side as well, you can use it for resume and cover letters. You can use it to personally coach yourself. I created what I call Jen, Jen AI, and she is my personal executive coach. You'll have access to her after this workshop. I also use it for meal planning because we can't take care of our businesses and our employees if we're not staying well ourselves. So creating, using what's in the fridge or what's on sale and create something that's a healthy meal for me that's going to keep me nourished so I can keep doing what I need to. Make sure, to leverage these tools in creative ways like that. You can also prioritize your task lists or chore schedules if you have a family that's helping out. It helps eliminate some of that manual kind of overhead so that we can apply our brains and our energy to things that are more strategic and thoughtful to help grow our business. So what's next? You can test out in further detail your ideal customer. Think about what pain points they have, what challenges they're facing, and then how do you speak to those challenges or those needs? Next, you can also refine your brand voice. So use the screenshot that you grabbed, hopefully, of some of those words and think about what words you would use to describe your business. How do you want your customers to experience your business versus that of your competitors? And finally, we want to make sure you can continue learning and researching. There are so many tools out there. The landscape is constantly changing, and it could be a full-time job for me just to keep reading all of the studies and articles and tools that are out there. So don't get overwhelmed, but give yourself some time this week to test out some tools, to trial run some things and see what you like working with, and continue evolving and building your skills, because this is a game-changing technology when we can learn how to apply it properly to our businesses. So we'll jump into time for some questions. And as you drop those into the chat, if you have any questions, Jason will help moderate. But as you're looking through and writing questions, I wanted to share some resources for you. That impact framework and the spreadsheet that I put together is available if you scan this QR code or go to the bit.ly/m/Jen Adamski. You'll also have access to the executive coach that I created for myself, so you can test drive her. There's also a blog with some other articles in that post that I had mentioned that includes the audio overview of my story. And let's connect on LinkedIn. I would love to hear about how you found these tools to be useful, ways that you're testing them out, and successes that you've had. So Jason, do we have any questions from the audience?
We do, Jen, and thanks for this presentation. I learned a lot myself. I love playing with ChatGPT, and I think for business owners, that idea of prompts and just playing with prompts and just experimenting is so key to helping it understand your voice. One of our first questions here is, what are the fees to use all of these tools, or do they have free versions? What should business owners be thinking about when they're thinking of budgeting, and how does that impact, AI?
Yes, that is a great question. Thank you for whoever asked that. So some of these tools do have free versions available. What you'll find is that they do have kind of usage limits, or you won't have full access to some features on that free version. But what I've found, if you want to be really scrappy and nerdy about it, is to try using some different tools. So if you run out of prompts time on ChatGPT, you could switch over to Claude and start to use that and test that out instead. There are paid level tiers for these. I do personally my company pays for ChatGPT and Claude. There are things ranging from a $20 a month payment all the way up to like research level, and that's hundreds of dollars a month. If you're there, great. I'm not. But there are a range of options, including free choices for a lot of these tools that I mentioned.
We've got a lot of questions, or a lot of comments that have come in about just how amazing this presentation was. One of them just said, an example to how wonderful you are, Jen, this morning, if you could give some ideas about how they might use your executive coach tool.
Sure. So one of the things I've trained my executive coach, I'll give a little context, is I trained it on my personality profile, on my operating systems in terms of the business principles that I apply. So I tell it to use the entrepreneurial operating system, use the 80-20 rule, and answer some questions to help me either think strategically about my business, think through how I want to work on this quarter, what are my high level activities, or like sometimes I'll just say, I'm overwhelmed. What do I do next? And it will walk me through that. It's almost like talking to a friend. So feel free to test that out. She is in beta mode right now, but you're welcome to try her out.
We had a question. I know, Jen, you talked about a couple different tools, and you focused on just a few specific ones. One question that came in was just asking if you have any opinions of you.com, which is another AI platform at all.
I have not used that one as much, so I would say sometimes I find good research, like you can check out Reddit, some of those threads, but I don't personally have experience with that tool. But I will check that one out.
One question that came in was, what advice do you have for businesses that might feel overwhelmed right now or unsure about jumping into AI tools? What's the basic thing that they should do to start today if they were leaving here with one thing?
That is a great question. And I think the thing I see a lot of folks doing is that we talk about AI, but we don't think about like specific use cases. And it is so overwhelming because, we hear in the C-suite, we need to incorporate AI, and nobody knows what the heck that means sometimes. So think about a specific use case that you can apply, or a problem that you would need to solve, and then apply the tool. So like one of those things might be like, I don't understand why our customers are dropping off. Like we have a drop off in purchases, they're coming to our website, but they're not completing purchase. You can use a tool like that. Like think of that as a use case, and then test out AI to solve that problem and ask it questions and see if you can use it as a brainstorming partner to walk through a specific use case.
Another one that came in was, once you start working with AI tools and on AI, does it remember what your tone and business voice actually is in that once you get started?
Yes. Oh, I love this question so much. And stop me, Jason, if I nerd out too much. But you can absolutely tailor it to your tone. So there are kind of tiers and levels. There's levels to this. But the most basic level is that a tool like an LLM tool like ChatGPT will start to pick up on things that you're saying, or if you're saying like be more succinct, like I've taught mine, like please don't get so wordy. It will start to remember that, and that's what's called memory for a tool like ChatGPT. And it will remember sometimes, you know, that I like Thai food, for example, or whatever, and it will remember little details like this. It will remember that your company targets X type of client. That is one tier of this. If you get into training and really wanting to nerd out on it, you can create a custom GPT. I believe that's only available in that paid $20 a month version, but that's what I've used to create a lot of my tailored tools. Like I've created a tool that that remembers some of my clients' specific messaging. So when we need to write product descriptions, it's creating a more of a luxe kind of brand voice, using all of the language that we have approved for her brand. So check out custom GPTs in ChatGPT if you really want to nerd out and tailor and hone that voice even more. Does that answer that question?
I think so, and I know that I have actually, I use ChatGPT all the time, and I've named mine Quinn, and Quinn remembers certain things that I give it, and it helps make writing things easier the next time because it understands some of that voice already. So we've got another question here that comes in. Talking about, you mentioned some great use cases around kind of businesses with some of the events or sales for that, but do you have any examples or ideas for a business that isn't necessarily offering that, but is more in the human services space on side of things instead of direct products, of how they might be able to use AI?
Yes, absolutely. And I think on the human services side, it can be really beneficial because you really want to resonate with, like, you're selling a service, not just a widget or a product. And being able to connect with your audience is even more important in these cases. So, like service-based businesses or human services definitely can be applied to, these same kind of concepts. Think about who is your ICP, who's your ideal customer, and how do you reach them and speak to those pain points. It's still the same kind of approach, just applying it to that service-based business.
Another one that someone just sent me here in the chat was, where do you see AI tools having the biggest impact on small businesses in the next 2 to 3 years?
That's a great question. I think what I see happening, and this is true in my case, is that you might see a lot of solopreneurs kind of coming up, or being able to do less or more with less. So you've got maybe smaller teams that are a little more agile and able to use these tools and ramp up revenue that much faster, because you can do the work that used to take weeks. Literally, some of the marketing projects I would take weeks in minutes sometimes. So I think those companies and those small businesses that start to adapt these tools can experience that rapid growth and make their operations even more lean, efficient, but also to drive revenue. So we'll see if that happens, and hopefully this presentation will help somebody's small business do that.
Well, and that, I think, the final question was just, how do they get all of this great information? I think we're sharing this presentation out afterwards with folks. We've got some of the resources here on that Jen has shared on the screen to also get access to it. But I think that covers everything that has come in through the chat and the Q&A, Jen. So thank you for sharing all of this today. I know I took away a lot that I can use to help the businesses that we work with at the Wisconsin LGBT Chamber, but hopefully I know there are things that everyone who's joining us today from across the state can also take in and use.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and feel free, like I said, check out those resources and let's connect on LinkedIn. But I hope everyone sticks around for the sessions and has a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
I'll turn it back to WPI.